Para mí es un gusto, una alegría inmensa porque gracias a sus películas hemos impulsado poco a poco el cine más en el terror. ¿Y qué más? Poder iniciar con uno de los roles más importantes, uno en Chains, como el Ron May en el 69 y también como el diputado Norris en Psicosis 2. Ahí mi pregunta a ello es, ¿cómo describe la psicología de estos dos roles que han sido inmortalizados? Y en verdad, ¿qué respuesta buscaban ellos en realidad? Ya estando usted en la actualidad, maestro.
Okay, first, as I say, Jhon said that it's really an honor to have you here because you inspired a new generation of filmmakers, even in this country, in Latin America, in Colombia, Mexico. And the first question is, how do you describe the psychology of these two characters that have been immortalized in your movies? The roommate in the film changes back in the 69, and the deputy Norris in Psycho 2. How do you describe it, and how do you feel that these two characters will fit now in the world that we live today?
Well, the story of Psycho is that the relatives of his dead victim, Janet Leigh, when they find out that Norman's getting released from the psychiatric institute, they decide to take their revenge by driving him crazy again. So he'll go back inside the institution. And you had Vera Miles, who in the original Psycho was Janet Leigh's sister. So she's trying to avenge her sister that died, that was killed in the great bathroom scene in Psycho. And what you don't know is that her daughter, Meg Tilly, who you think is just a girl that he meets in a diner, is Vera Miles's daughter, and the daughter and the mother are in cahoots to drive poor Norman crazy. And the irony is that Norman starts out and he is cured. He's desperately trying to hold on to his sanity. And the two women who want to put him back in the institution succeed all too well. And it ends up costing them both their lives. And at the very end, Norman Bates, played by Tony Perkins, is totally insane and kills his mother. And nobody knows he's crazy again. So, so that's the story of Psycho 2. What happened was that when I got the assignment, when we got the job, Richard Franklin, the director, and I, it was a cable movie, and this was 1982, and cable. This was before you guys were born, and cable was just coming in, and we wanted to make a feature film, and the only way we could convince Universal of the potential of Psycho 2, because this was a couple of beats before they started doing sequels. The only way we could convince them of that is if we got Tony Perkins to come back as Norman Bates. And in order to get Tony to agree to act as Norman Bates again, it had to be a terrific script in terms of his character. I had to create a character arc that was really actor's bait. It would be challenging for an actor of Tony's caliber to come back and do the part, because Tony was very ambivalent about his worldwide success as Norman Bates. On one hand, it made him worldwide famous. On the other hand, it destroyed his career. Because before he played Norman Bates, he was a young romantic lead. You know, they were putting him in parts, where girls loved him. And after he played Norman Bates, everybody thought, well, no, I don't think so. But so anyways, the part was so good, I like to think, that Tony came back and said, yes, I'll do it. And the minute that Universal released a press release throughout the world that Tony Perkins was coming back to play Norman Bates, the worldwide reaction was overwhelming. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to see Psycho 2. And that convinced Universal to go from doing a movie for cable, sort of a throwaway, into doing a theatrical release with Psycho 2. And Psycho 2 turned out to be the biggest movie in the summer of 1982 after the first sequel of Star Wars. So that tells you how big Psycho 2 was at the time. Anyway, and everybody it's one of those very, very rare examples where everybody associated with it was just terrific. They were all doing their best. It was the last gathering of everybody that had personally worked with Mr. Hitchcock. The line producer was Hilton Green, who'd been the first assistant director on Psycho and all of Hitchcock's movies up to what was the Cemetery Plot, whatever the last one was. The script supervisor was a man, and he'd worked for 20-some years with Mr. Hitchcock. Vera Miles was in every. Hitchcock wanted her to play the lead in Vertigo, and she was pregnant, so she couldn't play it. She said Mr. Hitchcock never forgave her for being pregnant and not being able to play it, so Kim Novak ended up playing it. Anyway, it was the last gathering of everybody who knew him. The architecture of the Psycho house was the same house from the original 1961 Psycho. In other words, the production designer was Robert Boyle, who'd done Psycho. You had Alf Whitlock, who was a famous scene painter, and he did the moving mats of the yard and the country surrounding the house. It was one of the last gatherings of the great technicians of the classical era of making Hollywood movies. And I was very, very fortunate to have been there and been involved. I think I was only like 38 years old. So I walked around with my mouth open because I've always been a fan. And one of the mistakes I made was I didn't have an autograph book to get everybody's autograph. But anyway, Psycho 2 was a movie where everybody wanted to support it and do their best because it was for Mr. Hitchcock. They all had known him. It wasn't just another job. And the actors were just terrific. Richard Franklin, everything. So I was blessed. My first movie before that had been a horror movie called The Stranger Within, which was United Artists, which I think was like it was released in 1980, and that coincided with the bankruptcy of United Artists because of the disaster of the Michael Cimino film. Dancing, what was it called? Remember? No. Anyway.
The Michael Cimino movie, the plot was, yes, the Western one, the big Western one. I don't remember it. I will say the name later.
Okay. Well, it bankrupted United Artists. And the last movie the United Artists released before it went bankrupt was The Beast Within, which actually made money, but nobody knew about it. So I finally, after years of working, got my first movie made with The Beast Within, and the production company, the studio, goes bankrupt, and nobody even knows that it was released. So I was out of work for an entire year. And then I was offered the job to write the sequel to Psycho. And if you were there then, it was a job that was sure to kill your career, because you just knew that the critics were going to savage you for having the temerity to remake or do a sequel to one of the classic movies. I mean, Psycho is the beginning of modern horror films. It's the beginning of the slasher film. Psycho changed horror. You know, everything that's come since we owe to Psycho. And so, if I probably hadn't been desperate for a job, I would have turned it down. But I didn't, and it worked out very well. And it was a huge step in my career, and I'm forever thankful.
Muchas gracias. Antes que nada es un honor y es un sueño hecho realidad poder hablar con Tom sobre Fright Night, que es mi película favorita de vampiros. Muchas veces a los vampiros los muestran o como seres seductores, románticos, misteriosos, o como monstruos sanguinarios, ¿no? Pero en Fright Night hay una mezcla muy hermosa entre estos dos elementos. Entonces quiero preguntarle al señor Tom, ¿cómo es que creó a los vampiros de Fright Night? ¿Cómo se le ocurrió para crearlos? ¿Y qué tan involucrado estuvo con la música? Porque es que amo todo de esta película. El soundtrack también me vuela la cabeza. La canción Come to Me la escucho seguido porque me encanta. Entonces, pues bueno, esas son mis preguntas.
Okay, we are going to talk about Fright Night, that happens to be the favorite vampire movie from Cesar, from Mexico. And he asks, how do you create that mix of seductive, but also monstrous, really evil vampires? And he wants to know also how committed were you with the soundtrack? He loved the song Come to Me. In fact, he listened to that song really in the daily basis. So tell us, how do you come out with these amazing vampires from Fright Night?
Oh gosh, I think whenever you make a movie, in order to have it work, you need a little bit of luck, and you need the good Lord looking down on you. You know, I wrote a screenplay called Cloak and Dagger, a movie called Cloak and Dagger, and Cloak and Dagger stars the boy from E.T. and the actor from 9 to 5. And it supposedly was a remake of Cornell Woolrich's juvenile version of Rear Window. And it was called The Window, short story. Cornell Woolrich was the Stephen King of his time. He was a writer. And everything he wrote, like 20 different books or short stories he wrote were made into movies. And he wrote the original short story for Rear Window. And he did the juvenile version of it called The Window. And I was am a big admirer of Cornell Woolrich. And so I agreed to do it. But it's a boy who cried wolf story. And it wasn't enough of a story. They subsequently ripped it off with Suburbia, but it's a story of a boy who looks out his window and sees a guy in the house next door killing someone. And of course, when he goes to the police, the guy finds out about it and comes after him. And he's only a teenager. And I said, well, you've seen that story too many times. If you really wanted to do it and make it new and fresh, you'd have the kid being a horror movie fan, which is what we all are, and he looks out his window and he sees a vampire chomping down on a beautiful young girl, and that would be fresh and new. And the studio, which was Universal, threw me out of the office. They said, that's a horrible idea. Nobody wants to see vampires. Vampires are so passé. Now, you got to remember that this is in movies, or at least in Hollywood, everything goes in cultural cycles, goes in fashion. And they'd had a disaster with a big musical version, I think, of Dracula, with Robert Wise directed it, and it was Universal. And they lost. It was a big Broadway musical. Frank Langella starred in it, and Universal lost tens of millions of dollars. And the next vampire story was a comedy, a satire called Love at First Bite with George Hamilton. And usually when a movie, when a genre goes into satire, it means the genre is exhausted. And so that's where it was when I came up with Fright Night. Everybody thought having anything to do with vampires was the kiss of death, literally and figuratively, that it was box office death. So Universal said, no, that's a terrible idea for Cloak and Dagger, write something else. And I wrote Cloak and Dagger, the movie, which I think, by the way, is a very good movie. And it certainly has a lot of fans, but it isn't horror, it's a thriller. What was the name of the kid in E.T.? I'll remember.
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas. And who played the boss in 9 to 5? He played Henry Thomas's father. Remember the boss that everybody hated?
Dabney Coleman.
Yes. Bravo. Dabney Coleman.
Sorry, Master.
Anyway, Cloak and Dagger starred Dabney Coleman and Henry Thomas, and it did very well. And then it became every young guy who saw it for the next 30 years loved the movie. Anyway, but it wasn't the huge success that Psycho 2 was. But anyway, I couldn't get the idea out of my head of a horror fan looking out his window and seeing a vampire and becoming convinced that his next door neighbor was a vampire. It's a very funny situation. But I didn't have a story. So I'm walking around, I don't know, 6 months later, and I kept saying to myself, well, if I was that kid, and I would have loved to have been Charlie Brewster, but what would I do if I became convinced there was a vampire next door? And I thought to myself, well, of course, I'd go to a host of horror movies. I'd go to a Peter Vincent type character for help. And the minute that I had Peter Vincent in my head, and I thought of that part, I couldn't wait to sit down and start writing. And I mean, I wrote that script and I loved writing it. I was laughing half the time. I thought it was so much fun. And then when I was finished, I had become successful enough as a writer that they didn't throw me out of the office when I said that I wanted to direct. And the movie that I had done just before that was something called Scream for Help. And it was directed by Michael Winner. And it did not work. And I thought, he was a charming man. But what he directed the vigilante movies with Charlie Bronson. And what Michael Winner did was he thought that the less dialogue he had, the stronger the movie was, because that's how the vigilante movies with Charlie Bronson had worked. So he cut all my dialogue out in Scream for Help, and the movie made no sense. He didn't know what the characters were going through. And I thought to myself, well, I can't do any worse than that. So I insisted that I direct Fright Night. And I remember MGM turned me down, but offered a lot of money to buy the script. But then I finally found Columbia. And there was a terrific guy who was the head of the Columbia at the time. He was a former huge agent. He was Steven Spielberg's agent, Guy McElwain. And Guy McElwain had met me socially years previous, so he knew who I was. And they had one slot left in their schedule, and they didn't have very much money. They needed a low-budget movie, and Guy decided to take a roll of the dice with me, and gave me the go-ahead for Fright Night. So it was just luck all the way. And I got a wonderful line producer named Barowitz, forget his first name now, but he was really supportive. And what happened was Columbia had done Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters was a huge success. And it was Richard Edlund's effects team that had done Ghostbusters. And they wanted to keep the team together for a sequel to Ghostbusters. And in order to keep them employed, they gave them this little horror movie called Fright Night. So what happened was I got the best effects team, Boss Films, the best effects team in Hollywood at that moment. And I got brilliant technicians. I got a skull. I got Steve Johnson. I got I got the best sculptors, the best people with creature makeup. I got with Richard Edlund. I had the best guy for matte shots and for moving matte shots, which is the vampire going off the Chris Sarandon going off the banister and going down. You go onto the shadow on the wall, which changes into a bat, and then you come around and you're on the bat model flying, flying right into camera. I had Ghostbusters quality people working on all the makeup and all the effects on Fright Night. That's called luck. That's why I say that the Lord has to be smiling down on you sometimes. But I had that, and I just had the best support. I don't know if I've ever been as well supported on another movie as I was on that. I somehow got through Child's Play, but Child's Play was very, very difficult. But Fright Night was a total pleasure.
Yo creo que complementando con la pregunta que tiene César, descríbanos qué momento especial recuerda de Child's Play, Tyner, mis favoritas, y bueno, César, con la tuya.
Él también participó en Los Cuentos de la Cripta haciendo un capítulo. Entonces quiero preguntarle cómo fue el proceso de adaptación de Los Cuentos de la Cripta, porque originalmente la historia era un cómic y de acá lo hicieron a un capítulo sobre una chica que se enamora de un espantapájaros.
The four-sided triangle. Four-sided triangle. That's a terrific short, if I say so myself.
El triángulo cuadrilátero se llama el capítulo.
I did the rewrite on that, and then I got a terrific cast. Every one of them, and of course I don't remember anybody's name, except the girl has become a woman, and she's a star. What's her name? Do you remember her name?
La increíble Patricia Arquette. Patricia Arquette.
Patricia Arquette. Okay, here. I'm saying things that are, I don't know how to say this tactfully, but Patricia Arquette was very young then. I guess maybe she was early 20s. And she just had finished having a baby, her first baby. And she was lactating, which is to say her breasts were very full. And she was probably at her peak moment of sensuality and sexuality. I mean, she somehow breathed. I'm proud. The feminists are probably going to kill me, but it was like impregnate me, please impregnate me. I mean, all those hormones were working.
No, in fact, I remember her naked on that movie from David Lynch on the movie that he did with Lynch. She was naked, and for me, it's one of the most beautiful nuded scenes I had ever seen. The Patricia Arquette naked. She was amazingly beautiful. It
was that moment in time, and she was at the height of her beauty. It's like it's women. I don't know how, but it's in the hormones, and men know it. That's why you can be so drawn to them, because it's biological between men and women. She was like that when I shot with her, and so she she had naturally everything the part called for. And you could understand why the older man, the husband of the terrible wife, the farmer and his wife, you could understand why the farmer would do anything to get her into bed, to have sex with her. And so it was absolutely believable. And there's that great scene where he's watching through the chicken coop of her plucking eggs. And you see the full breasts, and you see how nubile she was. And you could understand that he would do anything. And of course he did, and it ended up costing him his life. But I mean, it's a great EC comic story. And the guy who played the farmer was wonderful. His wife was wonderful. I mean, I've been blessed with good actors and good actresses. But that was a moment when Patricia Arquette was physically perfectly right for the part. Because then she went on and she's become an older actress now, and she's a terrific actress. But she's never had that level of sexuality and sensuality that I've seen. So it's just luck that happened. But I love that short. I mean, I did 3 of the Tales of the Crypt. I did Four-Sided Triangle, which is terrific. I did Lover Come Hack to Me with a brilliant actress. Oh my God, this is what I hate. She's in the start of a Tarantino movie.
Amanda Plummer, yes.
Amanda Plummer.
From Pulp Fiction, yes.
Yeah, so Amanda Plummer, Lover Come Hack to Me. Amanda Plummer's a brilliant actress. I mean, she's really incredible. And then I did one called about street racing, and I can't remember it now, but it starred an actor that I discovered that very, very few people knew at the time, and his name was Brad Pitt.
Yes, and okay. King of the Road with Brad Pitt.
As a street racer, as a drag racer. So, I mean, the 3 Tales of the Crypt that I did had 3 brilliant actors who went on to become stars. Patricia Arquette, Amanda Plummer, and Brad Pitt. And I remember I finished the Brad Pitt show, and it was a half hour. It was a pilot, and I did 1 half hour, and Dick, great director who just passed about a year ago, did the other one, and it was called Two-Fisted Tales, which was also a comic by EC Comics. And the pilot did not sell, and they put the pilot that I did with Brad Pitt into EC Comics. But all you had to do, if you look at that, you could tell that Brad Pitt was exuding star quality. And whatever happened, I was shooting with him, and whenever he smiled, every woman on the set started to melt. He would have been like 25, 6 or 7 years old at the time. I mean, I was talking about the sex appeal with Patricia Arquette at that moment. You should have seen the sex appeal that Brad Pitt had at that moment. I mean, he was a movie star. And so I went to my agent and I said, sign him, represent him. And my agent said, no, he doesn't have a name. Too much work. I don't want anybody who isn't already going with their career. This was a big agent. And he turned down Brad Pitt. I mean, how's that for, Yeah, I mean, but it also tells you how screwed Hollywood is. And that they won't look with clear eyes at somebody's talent, even when it was as obvious as Brad Pitt was. And you saw that smile again in that movie the 2 girls did, Thelma and Louise, which was the movie that really started his career going. But it was that same smile that he had in that movie that he had in the Two-Fisted Tales. So anyway, the 3 EC comics I did, I was blessed. I had 3 actors that all turned out to be movie stars in one degree or another, and all of them were brilliant. That's luck. That's why I say that's blind luck. Thank you very, very much. And aren't these guys wonderful? Andre, Jhon, and Caesar, thank you all very much. And tune into the next episode.
¿Cómo percibe usted la evolución del terror y horror en dos cintas que a mí me encanta, Cheese Play y Tyner, pero ¿será que en Cheese Play, para su perspectiva, maestro, cómo sería un final total de Chucky?
Oh,
Okay, this is the final question, the final. We are pleased, so thankful that you came back. And how do you perceive and define the evolution from the histories of these two movies that you made, Thinner and of course, Shoes Plate? And how do you feel that it will be the perfect finale for this character? I don't know. I know that there is a series that will come back, but we want to know the word from the author himself. Tell us, Master.
okay, ask me the question again. You're asking me about Child's Play and Chucky.
Thinner. And Thinner.
Thinner. Oh,
Yes.
Thinner's totally different. I thought you were asking about Chucky and Child's Play. No,
Yes,
Thinner.
for Chucky and from Thinner, from this the both movies.
Oh, you want to talk about both movies?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Jhon. Okay.
Okay, well, we'll start with Child's Play, because I did it before I did Thinner. Child's Play came to me, and I want to be kind. Child's Play, they couldn't get it done because no director in town would touch it. The script didn't really work. But I thought that it had a great idea. And the idea it had was, what happens if your playthings when you were a little kid, your children's playthings came alive? And I think that all of this, when we were growing up, we've gone to bed in our rooms and we looked around at our action toys or our play cars, or our dolls, I guess, if you're a girl, or a boy, I don't know. But anyway, we've all thought to ourselves, wouldn't it be great if they came alive and talked to us or whatever? And that idea was in the original script, but I didn't know how to solve it. And then I was on it as to write it and direct it, and I couldn't do it, and I left it. And I left it, and I went and I made the Whoopi Goldberg movie, Fatal Beauty. And then after I was through with Fatal Beauty, I never know, Andre, I never know how these things happen, but Charles Lee Ray came into my head, the Lakeside Strangler, the Brad Dourif part. And I thought to myself, if I had a serial murderer that got his soul inside a little boy's doll, well, you'd have a situation that would be filled with peril. You'd have a terrific thriller situation. And I learned about suspense from doing Psycho 2. Alfred Hitchcock said that there's a big difference between surprise and suspense. Surprise is when a family comes in, sits down at the kitchen table to have dinner, and boom, a bomb goes off under the table. That's surprise. You have no idea it's going to happen. However, if you see the bad guy come in, put a bomb underneath the table, and light the fuse and leave, and the family comes in and sits down to have dinner and does not know that the bomb is under the table, but you, the audience, does, that's suspense because you're sitting there waiting for the bomb to go off. That is Child's Play. The opening scene in Child's Play, you see Brad Dourif as the serial murderer getting shot by the cop, played by Chris Sarandon. And as he's dying inside the toy store, he puts his soul inside a doll. And you know, because you see the voodoo, you get the idea, you know that evil man, that soul of that horrible man is dwelling inside of that innocent looking doll. And then the mother who wants to give the little boy, you know, his birthday present, she buys the doll from a bum who got it from the toy store in the explosion. And she gives it to her son. Now we, the audience, knows that that doll is lethal. We know Chucky is murderous. The mother does not know it, and the little 7-year-old boy is totally innocent. So you were sitting there waiting in anticipation for that doll to start murdering people. Okay, and that's got, I think, the longest and maybe the best suspense sequence I've ever done. And I think it's on page 50 of the script. You can buy the scripts, by the way, on my website, TH Terror Time, to give a pitch. But on page 50 is when the mother comes home. Her little boy has been arrested in the police station. She's bereft, she's depressed, and she decides to throw the box and the doll away. And she takes the box to put it in the garbage, and the batteries fall out. Okay, that's the beginning of the suspense sequence. From the time the batteries fall out, then if you remember, she takes the batteries in and she goes and she picks up the doll in the living room. She turns the doll on the back, over on her stomach. She opens up the compartment of the child's back to look for batteries. They're empty. This doll has been moving and talking for however many days it's been with no batteries. And then the head does a 180, looks up at her and says, "Hey, want to play?" And she goes, "Ah!" And she drops the doll, okay? The doll hits the floor and rolls underneath the couch. Okay, how scary is all this? Now the mother thinks, "Oh my God, something's really wrong with this doll." And she bends down and looks underneath the couch, and she picks up the hem of the couch and looks into the darkness at the doll. Okay, that's about as exposed as you can get, because we all know her most vulnerable part right then are her eyes. And she pushes the doll trying to get a reaction out of it, and the doll won't do anything. So she pulls the doll out from under the couch, she lifts it up, and she's defending her son. She thinks, no, maybe my son's telling the truth. It's the doll who's been doing the killing, not him. And she shakes the doll and says, talk to me. The doll won't do anything. So she lights the fireplace and she threatens to throw the doll in the fireplace. And now the doll comes alive and says, "You dirty bitch," whatever, and grabs her by the throat, and she throws the doll. And then the doll turns around and runs out of the apartment, gets in the elevator. She's running down the stairs after the elevator as it descends, and she comes out onto the street after the doll, and the doll's gone. That's an 8-minute, almost silent suspense sequence, sustained suspense. And that's the Hitchcockian definition of suspense. And that's child's play. Great fun to do. Great fun to do. I didn't know how the hell I was going to do it. Oh, wait a minute. I'll tell you. Here, another pitch. I just made a deal with United Artists. And United Artists has the rights to child's play. I did it for them. And United Artists is now part of MGM, which has just recently been bought by Amazon of all places. Anyway, I am going to publish a book called Child's Play, a visual memoir. And I have 140 stills that I took from my production stills on the making of Child's Play. So you can see how we did it and what the puppeteers went through. And there are shots of like 12 different Chucky heads, because every one of them had a different expression. And you can get an idea of the work that went into it. I just have got the rights, and I'm hoping to have it out for Christmas. But you can look for it, Child's Play, a visual memoir by Tom Holland. Anyway, so that's Child's Play, very simply. You want to talk about Thinner?
Yes, Josh, ¿quiere hablar sobre Tina?
Oh,
Master, if you want it, go ahead.
Venga, venga.
Well, Thinner is I thought Thinner was fascinating. I had it, this is where you say you either did things that were smart or you did things that were stupid. I was offered Thinner and I was offered The Stand at the same time by Warner Brothers. And they were trying to do The Stand as a movie. And they were trying to get that huge book into, I guess, 2 hours and 15 or 20 minutes, and it did not work. Thinner was always a mini series. It always needed 4 hours, if not 6 hours. And so, and I thought that Thinner, I'm talking about The Stand, excuse me, The Stand was always a long mini series. But Thinner, I thought, was a fascinating character story because the moral of Thinner is that moral jellyfish get squished in the end. But I don't think it quite worked like that. What happens in Thinner is that Billy, who's a lawyer in town and obese, vastly overweight, he can't stop eating. And his wife is giving him oral sex in the car as he is driving, and he accidentally runs down a gypsy woman who turns out to be the queen of the gypsies. And then he uses his position and his power in town to get off of a manslaughter charge in the trial. And the Gypsy King, who is outraged at this and wants vengeance, walks up to him as he's coming out and takes his finger and brushes it across his cheek and says, "Thinner." And he is cursed. And now Billy starts to lose weight. And at first, because he's fat to begin with, he's very happy. He's been trying to lose weight his entire life. But he keeps on losing weight. And he can't stop. And he realizes that he's cursed. And if he doesn't break the curse, he's going to die of starvation. And that's the story. But it does not have a happy ending. And what I found when I previewed the movie, and I previewed it, I must have done it 10 times trying to figure out how to make it work, the audience wanted Billy to win. They didn't want Billy to lose. But Billy had made a moral mistake. He'd taken the easy way out, and he used his position in town to get around paying for his sin. And by doing that, he was morally compromised and cursed. And in the end, he lost. He got the curse lifted. He got the Gypsy King to lift the curse. But then he found out his wife was cheating on him with the doctor. And he decided that he took the curse and put the curse in a strawberry pie. And he left the strawberry pie out for his wife to eat in the morning when she got up. And she ate it. Or he thought she did. He goes downstairs. He finds his wife dead in bed, so he knows that she has. Then he goes downstairs and he feels like, well, at least I got my revenge. And there's the only person he loves, his 17-year-old daughter. And she too had a piece of the pie. And he realizes that she's going to die now because she's cursed. And the only way for him to lift the curse off of the only thing he loves in life, his daughter, is for him to take the curse back on himself, and he eats a piece of the strawberry pie. So in the end, he ends up cursed in the end and dies. And that's the story up until the very end when you get those reverses. I thought was terrific. And I thought the actor, John Robert Burke, I think, did a terrific job playing Billy. But the audience found it very, very hard to see the guy that they had come to identify with and wanted to win losing in the end. So that's made me very leery of doing stories where your hero loses in the end. I think movie audiences are disposed towards having happy endings. And I think it's best that you give them some kind of a happy ending and you don't have your hero get totally wiped out in the end. Anyway, so that's Thinner. Let's not forget the miniseries Langoliers, also by Stephen King,
Of course.
which I thought was terrific and a great ensemble cast. And the effects are embarrassingly bad now. With the effects at the end with the Langoliers eating the world. Yeah, the little Pac-Man chewing everything. But that was at the moment when CGI was just coming in. And so we were just sort of learning about digital effects. Anyway, you've hit the great movies of my career, and look for Child's Play, a visual memoir. We'll have it out for Christmas, I hope. And also, I just finished writing Fright Night, the novel Origins. I decided to write, I'm doing a trilogy of Fright Night novels. And I've written 3 of them, but I just wrote the first one. I just finished it. And it's the Fright Night movie, but I filled it in with all the characters and all the people and what they're really feeling and what's really going on and how the police were investigating it and the battle between Jerry and Billy over the older man, the older seductive man fighting the young boy who finds his girlfriend being taken away, Amy. And I think it's terrific. So I'm having that edited right now. So I hope to have that out. I don't know when that's, but that'll be out next year, hopefully early next year. But I'm gonna get the Child's Play photo book out this year. So it's crazy. I'm busier and working harder than I have for years. Well, yeah, but I mean, look, Andre, I'm very lucky. I'll tell you. I went out and I did Eli Roth's History of Horror on AMC channel, and I was chauffeured out to the studio to do they wanted to talk about Psycho 2, I think, and I don't know what I was doing. Maybe I was complaining, saying that I had too many people asking me to do documentaries and podcasts, and I didn't have enough time to write. And the chauffeur driver, the limousine driver, turns and looks at me in the rearview mirror. And he's a guy my age. And he said, you don't realize how lucky you are. We're contemporaries, the same age. Nobody wants to talk to me. They want to talk to you. And when he said that, it really hit me. I'm really blessed. I mean, I'm thrilled that guys as young as you are interested in talking to me. And I thank you very much for the quality of the questions, for the good company. And I hope that a lot of people watch this. And a lot of the stuff I've been talking about is published in Spanish, by the way. I want to hold it up here. You'll know it better than I do, but this is a Spanish publisher.
Oh.
This is the novelization of Fright Night that was not by me, but by the 2 writers back in 1985. This is a collection of my short stories in Spanish.
Oh.
This is a coloring book of Fright Night it's all in Spanish. I don't know if you pick it up there or not for you to cover if you want to color. And here's a copy of Child's Play, the Child's Play, the visual memoir. And I got to tell you, the pictures are just terrific. And you see all the work done with the dolls and the little person that we had doing Chucky. It's just everything that you wanted to know about how it was done. I mean,
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really, if you look at all the dolls I was working with in order to pull it off, because this was before CGI, and every face of Chucky only did you could make the eyes move, but only did like that. You couldn't get, in other words, there was no plasticity of expression. You could only move the face of the eyebrows about an inch, and that was all. So what I would do when I was making Chucky act is I would shoot the live actor, I cut back to the doll. He'd start an expression, back to the actor, back to the doll, and now the expression had become meaner. Back to the actor, back to the doll, and now the doll, like, you know, but that's how. So if you read a visual memoir, you'll understand it. Anyway, thank you all very, very much. Thank you everybody in Colombia and everybody for listening in, and thank you, Andre. Thank you for translating.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Oh, well, thank you. Hi to the Chile video group. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you've had a good time. You guys have been great.
Yes. Save it then moment.
I will ask you, did you want to make this picture with Halloween themes or not?
Do I? Oh, God. What do I do? Happy Halloween, you mean?
Okay, yes. But you can show us one of the rules or Chucky. We will take the picture.
Oh, with Chucky?
Yes.
Hold on.
Okay. Chicos, va a traer a Chucky. Jhon, mejor día de mi vida.
Oh, God. This is the closest I have at hand.
Take
This
the
is
picture.
the closest I have at hand.
It's beautiful.
Hold on.
Okay, we will pause master with the Jhon. Okay. Take the picture.
Does this work for you guys?
It's perfect. Pause.
Chucky says hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Chucky, don't kill us.
1, 2,
Anytime I can. Thank you. You guys really have made it a pleasure. You really have. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Caesar. Thank you, Jhon. God bless. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
En México. Feliz Día de Muertos. Feliz Día
In
de Muertos.
Mexico. Yeah, the dead. Yes,
The Day
yeah,
of the
right.
Dead.
Muerto.
Feliz Día
Yes.
de Muertos. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Dijo que sí, que él está consciente que los efectos especiales de Langoliers no envejecieron muy bien, pero que él amó haber hecho una de las primeras series televisivas usando CGI, y obviamente él sabe muy bien que los Langoliers parecen a Batman, pero que todo fue a propósito. Que yo además, de hecho yo le quería preguntar sobre los Langoliers, pero es que lo que me encanta es que todo lo que nos quiso decir lo dijo sin las preguntas. O sea, lo de Fright Night 3, no, men, yo creo que de aquí para arriba, no, pues todas las entrevistas han estado buenas, pero ya de aquí para arriba. Bueno, el maestro nos habló de Changes, porque dice que para él Psicosis 2 fue el momento más importante de su carrera. ¿Por qué? Lo resumiré. Fue una película que fue de las primeras cintas que se compró para cable, en el 82. Él dijo, el cable nació antes de ustedes. Dijo así, pero el cable no era la gran cosa. Creo que fue HBO el que compró eso, pero es una locura porque todo el equipo, bueno, obviamente, pues excepto Hitchcock, pero todo el equipo original digamos, detrás de cámaras de Psicosis, volvió. Y se logró hacer todo la prensa para que Anthony Perkins repitiera el papel, que era muy difícil porque Anthony Perkins dice que Hitchcock, pues, esa película lo inmortalizó, pero también le dañó la carrera porque él era un actor él era un galán. Y pues después de Psycho lo hizo también, que a las mujeres les daba miedo actuar con él. Sobre la trascendencia que tendría, esto es lo poco que dijo de tu respuesta, porque ya te digo lo mejor. Él dice que la trascendencia, bueno, vemos que obviamente el maestro es una persona con una visión de mundo que tal vez ahorita no se adaptaría, o sea, porque él es muy controversial y eso me encanta. Dice que, si ustedes se acuerdan, en Psicosis 2, él ya estaba curado y las mujeres lo vuelven otra vez loco y por eso se vuelve asesino. Sí. Pero él ya estaba curado, él ya se había curado. Volvieron todos, resulta que el mismo arquitecto de la casa, todo el mismo equipo. Y para él dice que fue tan increíble, tenía 38 años, creo que cuando hizo ese guión, para él fue tan increíble que dice que él le dolió no haber llevado un libro de autógrafos, porque estaba con todos sus héroes. Pero él dice que desde ahí, o sea, su director favorito es Hitchcock, y ahorita lo vuelvo a mencionar, pero eso es lo que dijo de Psicosis 2. Ah, no, César, Fright Night.
Yo le pondré Fright Night, sí.
Te lo resumo así en todo. Resulta que, bueno, vemos que el maestro obviamente él respeta muchísimo, muchísimo a sus equipos. Resulta que él había hecho el guión de una película llamada Cloth and Dagger. Esa película es con Henry Thomas. Obviamente Henry Thomas es el niño de E.T., para los que lo recuerdan. Bueno, aquí no me voy a extender con el elenco. La cuestión es que cuando él hizo Cloud and Dagger, que es un libro escrito por el mismo que escribió La ventana indiscreta de Hitchcock, que otra es Hitchcock, bueno, él me pidió que recordara el nombre de Danny Coleman, que es el que hacía él dice que Cloud and Dagger fue una gran película, pero que lamentablemente no pegó tanto. Y el estudio estaba como que ya no nos importa qué proyecto le damos, como que no va a ir bien. Resulta que para los estudios los vampiros ya van risa, literal. Y habían 3 ideas, menos mal la tercera idea quedó. Una era un musical que hizo, si no me equivoco, Robert Wise, pero un musical de vampiros con Frank Langella, pues sí, pero no. Hubo otra idea, no recuerdo el nombre, pero dicen que él, al haber tenido la suerte pues de haber adaptado Cloud and Dagger, pues de la novela del mismo escritor de La ventana indiscreta, pues él dice que se inspiró, bueno, ese escritor se llama Cornel Woolrich, él dice que él se inspiró y que de hecho, ¿no? Aquí hizo algo controversial, a él no le gustó mucho la versión que hicieron de Suburbia, después de La ventana indiscreta, Suburbia, o sea, esa película donde sale el chico de Transformers, pero bueno, la cuestión es que él dijo, ¿por qué Fright Night funcionó? Porque es La ventana indiscreta contada con vampiros. Un muchacho ve un crimen desde su ventana y resulta ser un crimen de vampiros. ¿Por qué todo funcionó en la película? Como el estudio no tenía nada que perder, como que, bueno, déjenlo adaptar su película Vampiros, los mismos que hicieron efectos especiales con el mismo equipo de los cazafantasmas. Todo el mismo equipo, todo. Él dice que la escena que más le gustó, obviamente la de las escaleras, tú la recuerdas muy bien.
Sí.
Dice que todo fue en props, todo fue hecho con ese equipazo. Dice que Fright Night fue un trabajo para él de suerte. Dice que él se ha sentido muy afortunado. Continúa, yo creo que con eso te lo dije todo. Bueno, y al final dice la gran respuesta que tú amas. No hablo de la música, pero al final dice que él dice, sí, Fright Night 3, el verdadero cierre, es una novela que él ya está escribiendo y la publica el otro año. Viene la batalla del vampiro antiguo contra el vampiro nuevo. Te va a cerrar todo. Eso que mostró es una versión que se hizo en México tú sabes que ahorita se novelizan muchas películas. Esa es la novela de Fright Night, que está gigantesca, pero es la novela de la primera película. O sea, no, eso de Fright Night 3 es una bomba.
Sí, ya lo espero.
Pero él se adelantó porque se me emocionó muchísimo con lo de Cuentos de la Cripta.
Y de Cuentos de la Cripta, un capítulo que él dirigió, el Triángulo Cuadrilátero.
Ni siquiera nos habló de ese capítulo, nos habló de 3 capítulos. ¿Por qué? Resulta que con el Triángulo Cuadrilátero, bueno, él aquí dijo una frase muy graciosa, que él dice que espera no ganarse a las feministas. ¿Por qué? Él dice que ese episodio primero él amó el cómic de DC, dice que le fascinó, o sea, que vemos que es un amante de los cómics. Dice que se siente afortunado porque, pues él dice que en esos 3 capítulos él lanzó a 3 actores que ahora son famosísimos, Patricia Arquette, Amanda Plummer en el otro capítulo que él dirigió, ya te digo cuál es el otro capítulo es Lover Come Hat to Me, y el otro, que es el favorito de Jhon, Skin of the Road, con obviamente Brad Pitt. Ya te cuento una anécdota. Resulta que él decía, que es muy gracioso porque él decía que, pues, Patricia Arquette, como había acabado de tener su primer hijo, pues estaba muy bella. Entonces, por eso funcionaba que en ese guión ella se viera tan sensual y todo. Y que él dice que, pues, tal vez una feminista ahorita viera ese capítulo, lo odiaría. Pero que la química que había ahí, pues, obviamente, entre la persona que está observándola y el asesinato y pues la pareja de Espósito, pues funcionó porque ella era perfecta para ese papel. Él hizo después el otro con Amanda Plummer, ella es la que sale obviamente en Pulp Fiction, la Honey Bunny, pero que él dice que para Jhon, aquí vas a morir.
A ver.
Cuando él fue el que dijo, o sea, se puede decir aquí en parte, que gran parte, ¿por qué Brad Pitt es Brad Pitt? Es por Tom Holland. El agente dijo, pero ¿por qué van a contratar a ese tipo? Es un desconocido, es un don nadie. Dijo, pero es que míralo sonreír. O sea, el tipo es muy sensual. No, pues allá tú. Dice que es increíble porque casi, y si tú lo analizas, es verdad. La psicología que ves en ese episodio de Tales of the Crypt es la misma de Brad Pitt en Thelma y Luisa. Fue seguido. Y él dice, mira qué estúpidos, dijo así, mira qué estúpidos son los agentes. No lo querían aceptar. Yo luché por él. Mira quién es Brad Pitt ahora y me siento bien de que de esos 3 episodios pues los haya descubierto, y obviamente gracias a esos 3 episodios gracias a esos 3 episodios, fue que él después lo llamaron para hacer como esta versión de Cuentos de la Cripta, que es Twisted Tales, ¿no? Tú sabes muy bien que él dirigió varios de Twisted Tales. Bueno, ahora el momento que toda Latinoamérica unía espera. Esto sobre Tiner y Charles Plate. Iré por Charles Plate. Él es gracioso porque él demostró que la producción fue muy compleja, pero que él se siente orgulloso, pues resulta que él aquí nos da la propaganda de que pues, vayan al website de él y compren el guión de Charles Plate, porque dice que lo mejor que ha hecho en su carrera es la página 15. ¿Qué es en la página 15? Creo que no necesito escribirlo. La secuencia de 8 minutos de las pilas. Dice que esa secuencia de 8 minutos de las pilas, de tú sabes de que voy a cambiar las pilas, y resulta que él ya se da cuenta que el muñeco siempre funcionó sin pilas, y se da cuenta que pues el hijo obviamente tenía razón, que el muñeco estaba poseído y fue la gran pelea. Dice que esa fue la forma de darle un homenaje a Hitchcock, porque entiende muy bien que pues el suspenso funciona no mostrándote la sorpresa de que el muñeco es maligno, sino mostrándote listo, que el muñeco es maligno, pero que la familia lo sabe. Aquí vas a morir, porque esto no lo he visto en ningún sitio de internet. Adivinen qué asesino se inspiró él para hacerlo.
¿O quién?
El estrangulador de Boston.
Oh, ok.
Porque él dijo, la única forma, porque él le pasó la idea. Y él, la idea inicial de hecho es parecida a otra película de Pixar, que él decía así, ¿cómo sería si los juguetes cobraran vida? Pero estaban como que, pásalo al terror. Él dice, esta idea de un muñeco diabólico solo funciona si yo baso el muñeco diabólico en un asesino famoso. Es ese asesino famoso. Estuve buscando en Google y nadie tiene esa respuesta. Siéntanse afortunados. El estrangulador de voz dice que por esa razón es que él dijo, listo, yo hago la película, si en la primera escena se muestra al asesino y al alma entrando el muñeco. Y que todo el mundo sabe menos la familia. Sobre The Thinner, aquí resumo, bueno, sabes muy bien, ¿no? La historia del tipo que tiene la maldición de emplacar hasta la muerte.
Sí,
Spoiler,
me parece.
dijo, spoiler, dijo, yo solo sentía que esta película funcionaba, además que pasó algo gracioso, el estudio quería hacer de Stan, pero de Stan, adaptarlo hubiera sido 6 horas, porque es un libro obviamente de Stephen King, entonces dijeron, bueno, hagan Thinner. Él decía, Thinner solo iba a funcionar si nuestro héroe al final pues fracasaba. Sabes muy bien todo ese concepto de que la única forma, y aquí me corrigen si es falso, que la única forma de él acabar con esa maldición va pasando desde la hija, ¿no? Tú lo sabes muy bien, ¿no? Y que el personaje al principio flaca y todo le va bien, pero sabes que él le flaca hasta la muerte y fue por la maldición que le hizo la bruja, ¿no? Tú sabes, ¿no? De Thinner, esa escena. Dice que no, que él sabía que solo eso iba a funcionar si nuestro héroe perdía, pero que nadie en el público esperaba eso. Todo el mundo esperaba que el tipo en realidad pues se liberara esa maldición. Dice que es un proyecto que amó, siendo muy distinto porque él sabe muy bien que The Thinner no es terror, The Thinner es suspenso. Eso es lo que dijo. Dice que él estaba enojado, no con nosotros obviamente, porque recientemente le habían hecho una entrevista sobre, dice que él estaba cansado de siempre ir a convenciones y que le preguntaran, ni siquiera fue sobre Chucky, sobre Psicosis 2. Y una vez entró un taxi, y el taxista la misma de él. Y él dijo, pero siéntete afortunado, se te están acercando personas más jóvenes, a mí no me hablan jóvenes, a ti están los jóvenes por eso. Él decía, vaya, sí tiene razón. Lo que pasa es que él sentía de que dijo, a diferencia de las otras personas, ustedes sí captaron mis películas. Decía que él estaba aburrido, de que, pero ¿por qué Norman Bates vuelve a enloquecerse? Dice que nada, que él es muy creyente, de hecho, ¿no? Dice que Dios él ha tenido suerte del cielo, lo dijo así. Es gracioso, ¿no? Sabiendo que lo de Tom Holland, que se sintió re bien, que cuando quieran lo llamemos, que le encantó esa entrevista porque dice que qué preguntas tan bien hechas. Claro, él no se dio cuenta que no estaba esperando que le preguntaran sobre psicología a los personajes. Y nada, por eso nos mostró, ¿qué nos mostró ahí? Bueno, gente de Latinoamérica, novela versión español de Fright Night, el libro, se viene otra publicación, vimos ahí lo de Chucky, pero se viene un libro más grande sobre todo como el proceso de hacerse Chucky. Dice que sí, es verdad, hubo una compra por parte de Amazon, por eso es que viene la serie, pero que él dice que el verdadero final, o sea, el verdadero futuro, él dice que no le importa lo que pasa con Chucky, pero que él sí se va a encargar del futuro de Fright Night. O sea, nos damos cuenta que lo que el más amó fue Psicosis 2 y Fright Night. No, Fright Night es su obra maestra y eso nadie lo va a negar. Nada, esos son los proyectos que se vienen.
Hey, don't forget to follow your son, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.